Karsiluni. It's the Intuit word for sitting together in the darkness, quietly waiting for something super important to occur. Today, I don't know any of you. I've met a few of you. I want something important to occur in your life. I want lightning to strike some of you. So let's sit together this morning as I take you on a journey through 3 stories from the 4 chapters of my life. I believe life is built in 4 chapters. Story number 1 comes from the chapter called Finding Myself, age or birth to age 33. I call that learning and growing. Story number 2 comes from Making Myself, age 33 to age 58. Building a career, a family, and wealth. Story number 3 comes from Becoming Myself, age 58 to 85. In my last chapter, you'll have to invite me back because I don't have a story yet. Will be 85 to age 102, and I call that my crowning glory. I choose to be here today because I believe men are at risk of not enjoying their crowning glory, the crowning glory that God desires for them, because of the choices that you and I make in our earlier chapters in life. My intention is that something important happens today so that you make potentially better choices. Let me say right now that there is no easy button to the exhilarating life that God desires for you, has destined for you, and that I know that you deserve. Seneca the Stoic wrote he actually pitied people who never experienced challenges. You pass through life without an opponent. No one can ever know what you're capable of, least of all you. Everyone nowadays wants easy and fast. But you know that love, relationships, health, work, parenting, kids, marriage, they're filled with hard and slow. Easy is Instagram hocus pocus. Fast is Trinity in the movie Matrix, learning how to fly a helicopter. Belief in these 2 words, and I will turn off my text so my wife doesn't interrupt us. Belief in easy and fast is why Henry David Thoreau wrote that most men live quiet lives of desperation. What I'm telling you today is damn hard, achingly slow, and totally worth it. All right, story number 1. Here we go. C.S. Lewis, I could not ignore the steady, unrelenting approach of him who I so earnestly did not want to meet. That was me back on August 14th of 1988 in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Leading up to that day, I was King Midas. Everything I touched in business and life had turned to gold. Ever since I was a young boy, I was always number 1. Athletics, business, school. You heard my bio. It sounds amazing. And it's all true. I was Superman in a world without kryptonite. That day, though, August 14th, I woke up at 2 in the morning. I was unsettled. I found my way to my favorite chair by the fireplace. My wife was fast asleep. I had my always with me buddy, Coral, my hunting golden retriever. He usually curled up close to me, but tonight he sat with his eyes locked on me. He knew something was happening. I normally slept well. This was unusual. So for a long while, I sat in the dark silence with Coral, the fireplace, and my thoughts. And next to me was a side table. It had a glass of water, some papers, a pen, and a bottle. That night, I had a lot on my mind. Much of my life was not working, especially at work. I was not winning. I was a loser at work, and therefore, I was a loser, period. None of it was working in my mind, and I had missed the mark that I and others held me to. I had failed the mission. Back then, I ran as a lone wolf. Maybe some of you do. I was damn proud of my independence. I had no friends. I wasn't the guy that built community. I didn't talk to my wife about things at work. Didn't seem appropriate. She couldn't help me anyway. So that night, as I struggled, I was all alone. Listen, I didn't get to number 1 without going through a lot of hardship. West Point, world-class athletics, Army service. I know how to suffer, and I know how to solve. But that night, I wasn't solving, and I couldn't handle it any longer. I was at the end of my rope. I didn't know what to do. I sat there, and I only had one option that was right in front of me. So as the sun rose, I knew it was time to make a decision. And that decision was in the bottle, right on the side table. As an athlete, I'd had multiple knee surgeries, and I'd been prescribed narcotics as pain meds, and I had some remaining. Matter of fact, I had 22 Percocets, and I had calculated that that would end my life. The stack of papers was my life insurance policy, my last will and testament, and a farewell letter of apology to my wife. I apologized to her for a marriage packed with frenzied work and failed goals. I'd let her down, and I was absolutely sure that night in that chair that I was worth more to her and the world dead than alive. I counted out the pills. I made sure everything was signed. I regretted that my wife was going to find me dead. But what I regretted more was imagining going forward another day, failing her and the rest of the world. I am a stoic. I don't show emotion, but that night buckled me to my knees. Right there, I got on my knees at that chair. There were a lot of tears as I battled these demons that you can imagine were inside me. And I was not a spiritual man back then. I didn't grow up in a religious household. But I prayed for the first time in decades. And God answered that prayer with a revelation. I'd been working towards, on, and for the wrong things. I was addicted to winning, achievement, and a lot of other crap that didn't mean anything. And I heard that night, right there, on my knees, I heard in my soul, I'm ready to put you to work if you're ready to go to work. It wasn't a burning bush moment, but I was intrigued. Could the God that I didn't know really do this? With no idea with what was to come, I leaned in and I made the choice that you know I made because I'm here. I promised God that if he would save me that night, I would dedicate the rest of my life to whatever he wanted me to do, and I didn't know what that meant. And just like that, my crisis was over. I got up, I flushed the Percocets down the toilet, threw the bottle away because there were refills still on it. I threw my farewell letter right in the fireplace. I tucked the last will and testament and my insurance policy in the desk drawer. I made a cup of coffee, sat back down, patted Coral on the head as a new day and my new life began. And that was my first God-led breakthrough. Up until then, I was a hollow, empty man, fulfilled only by success at work, and I was surrounded by a lot of men like that back then. The lesson I want to share with you from that dark night of my soul is that winning at work and losing everywhere else is a failed mission. I built the rest of my life off of that revelation, my coaching program, and this talk from that epiphany. Story number 2. In Matthew 25, 14 through 30, Jesus teaches the parable of the talent, or the talents. For me, first and foremost, the parable of the talent teaches me that we were put here to work. I was put here to work. And second, I see that God rewards those who put considerable effort into bettering their lives and bettering the lives of those around them. Chapter number 2, Making Myself. Discovering the easy, faster, better way. There was no magical click of the fingers. There was no night and day change in my life. I wish there had been. I think God laughs sometimes and says, okay, buddy, it's going to get harder. You may be stubborn, but I'm bigger than you. It was a long, slow, 25-year grind to change the man that I had become at age 33 and become the man God desired me to be. It was painful and it was hard, and as I said before, it was totally worth it. During that time, I evolved in many ways, but I want to focus on three: spirituality, professionally, relationally. I joined my first church, eventually landing at 12 Stone Church in Atlanta, and I became a men's group leader. I became the guy, believe it or not, where unchurched or lightly churched men migrated to. In a crisis, for answers to big questions, or to get the godly man roadmap that I was creating. As a startup entrepreneur, I started my first of 5 companies out of the bonus room in my little garage in my tiny little cul-de-sac home with babies downstairs. And I built it over 20 years, sold it to private equity for cash and generational wealth. And lastly, relationally, I dove deep into counseling, marriage counseling, and personal therapy. I was absolutely committed, just like I was when I was an Olympic athlete, to become a damn good husband, a great father, and a wonderful friend. I wanted to embrace deep, intimate relationships. That 25-year life chapter ended on December 4th of 2012. I had just left my attorney's office after closing on the sale of my companies. He turned his laptop around and showed me my bank account. I'd made it. And while sipping way too expensive scotch at the bar at the Four Seasons in Atlanta, I checked what I thought would be my last box. Millions in cash for the companies that I built from that little tiny home. I had Donna, the love of my life, right at my side, my son, daughter, and treasured friends nearby, and I was in the best health of my life ever. All because, or making it through, the slow, hard, mistake-riddled efforts that got me to this level of success. I felt I'd finally figured things out. And as Abraham Maslow described, I had achieved abundance, joy, self-esteem, and self-actualization. But little did I know, I wasn't done yet. So stay tuned. The lesson I want to share with you from that chapter of my life is doing the work, the right work. Doing the deep dive and figuring out where you move in life delivers life-changing and life-fulfilling benefits. Sorry, checking time. John 17:4. I've brought you glory on earth by finishing the work you gave me to do. Chapter 3. Becoming myself. The easier, faster, better way. This story starts shortly after the Four Seasons celebration. In 2013, Donna and I permanently moved to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And there I began searching for my next thing, always thinking it would be buying, scaling, and exiting a company or 2 or 3. But God had other plans. Yes, he did. That fall, while solo backpacking on the Teton Crest Trail, God spoke to me in I wish I had burning bush moments in my life, and I keep walking by bushes, but they never speak to me. What I did hear was this: Bill, it no longer is about your trophies, your medals, your accolades, which I had a lot of. It's now about the badasses you'll pour into who will achieve what you've won, only they'll do it better and faster and easier. You'll be the coach in the stands, behind the scenes. I was always out in front. It was all about me in the spotlight, but not any longer. I'd be quietly celebrating my so-called athletes' Star-Spangled Banner and their gold medal. God told me it was no longer going to be about me. And I knew then, in that moment on the trail as I hiked back out, that everything in my first 2 life chapters that I just told you about had been to prepare me for this new chapter and this new mission. And I don't remember who said it, but I've embraced it was time to grow my fruit on someone else's tree. I hung out my shingle as a coach and eventually developed a $1 million coaching business that has accelerated hundreds of wonderful humans just like you. All that led me to sell that business to several of my coaches in February of last year. And I traded the breadth of my BHAG, my big, hairy, audacious goal, 10,000 badasses impacted powerfully and positively, for the depth of now a narrow handful of men that I'll go deep with over the next decade until sometime, somewhere, and somehow I'll get put out to pasture. I'm a sage dedicated to influencing, bettering, and accelerating younger generations when they give me the permission to guide them. The lesson I want to share with you is that there is a proven roadmap to your future years that ensures you win big at work, in life, in yourself, and in your faith. I'm going to read this. It comes from the book, How Will You Measure Your Life? And if you haven't read Clayton Christensen's book, I'd write it down. From these parts of my life, Clayton writes, I distilled the likeness of what I want to become, a man who is dedicated to helping improve the lives of other people, a kind, honest, forgiving, and selfless husband, father, and friend, a man who just doesn't believe in God, but who believes God. When I have my interview with God, our conversation will focus on the individuals who I was able to strengthen, whose faith I was able to reinforce, whose discomfort I was able to relieve, a doer of good, regardless of what assignment I had. These are my metrics that matter in measuring my life, says Clayton. So enough about me. My stories. Let's focus on you. What do I know now that matters that I didn't know mattered when I was your age? 1, you matter. Flight attendants tell us to put on our mask first before helping others. It may seem like an act of generosity toward yourself, but self-care is what I want you to focus on. And I don't know you personally, but I know you struggle with that. You put yourself second. If you're a father, a husband, an employee, a business owner, I know the challenge. Self-care is not selfish. It's so you have the strength and the power and the focus to support others. One place to start beginning self-care is the magical word, no. Saying no, weaponizing no in your life so that you say no to what I call the trivial many, so that you embrace and lock in on what I call the vital few. We're not brought up into a culture. My kindergarten teacher did not teach me no. My mother taught me say yes, be nice. I want you to say no. And I want you to embrace this mindset that was in my bio and that permeates this talk. Believe to your core that winning at work and losing away from work is an absolute failed mission in life. Focus on winning big in business, life, yourself, and your faith, all at the same time. And you can do it. Number 2. You may laugh. Sleep matters. If you want to take care of you, freaking sleep. Its effects of not sleep are frightening. It clearly affects your current performance, your current health, and your long-term health. Dr. Matthew Walker, Sleep Matters. He's a preeminent researcher. Study it. It'll scare the crap out of you. I'm a former Olympic athlete and a military veteran. I was trained to not sleep. Exercise, nutrition, training were my equation. I was 100% wrong. Number 3, time matters. I observe, I don't know you, but if you're like most men, you live in a busy world packed with chaos, frenzy, and therefore confusion. If you say things like find time, make time, or don't have time, you're in it. You are failing at the time you've been given. Einstein showed you that if you don't live at the speed of light, time is time, and you don't manage it. Embrace priorities. Live in a day-type compartment of presence and set those priorities based on the impact you want. How do you get the impact you want? You have a grand plan. A grand plan matters. I walk all my clients through tools that they never had. I've never met anybody that had. Met a lot of people that had business plans, pretty crappy ones, but they never had a life plan. You don't drive away from Chicago to Disney World, whichever way Disney World is, by going to Los Angeles. And a lot of men I meet, especially 50-year-olds, go, how in the hell did I get here? And I point out that it was 10,000 paper cuts from the time they got out of university to that day of bad choices. Set and get the goals you want by defining them and then creating written plans. I have 3. A 1-page personal plan, which maps out 25 years out. I have mine. I'm 70. I've got to map out to 95, on my way to 102. A 3-year bridge. A reflect back, look forward exercise, which is an annual plan. And then what I call the Life Wheel GPS to map out the 10 meaningful categories in life every quarter. Is it extra work? Hell yeah. Is it easy to get an exhilarating, extraordinary life? Nope. Totally worth it when you do. Lastly, and PJ, where are you? I'm almost done.
Keep going.
No, thank you. Careful what you said. You heard it back on August 14th of 1988. Relationships matter. The Harvard Grant Study is a longitudinal study that's been conducted for more than 85 years at Harvard. It's one of the longest running studies of adult development and human happiness in history. The study began in 1938 with the elite of men. Some of them are still alive. 2 of its directors have published great works. Write this down. Triumphs of Experience by George Vaillant. This is the roadmap. I think they know a thing or two about human development, and your happiness. Here's what Robert Waldinger, the current director, says. The good life is built with good relationships. It's not just the number of friends you have. It's not whether or not you're in a committed relationship. It's the quality of your close relationships that matter. George Vaillant, the former director, happiness is love, full stop. My lesson to you is that, to my almost demise, I did not focus on relationships when I was your age. Don't do what I did. In the final scene of Saving Private Ryan, an aged Private Ryan visits the Normandy American Cemetery in France. Standing beside the gravestone, if you've seen the scene, of Captain John Miller, who sacrificed his life to save Ryan, Ryan is visibly moved. As he contemplates the inscription on the stone, a familiar voice reminds him what Captain Miller told him on Alamo Bridge. Earn it. He asks himself, did I earn what they were willing to sacrifice their life for on my behalf? He didn't know. He turns to his wife and he says, tell me I've lived a good life. Tell me I'm a good man. And he hears back, you did and you are. Men, each of you want to hear the same thing, that you're a damn good man that earned it. General Mark Miley, former chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, says, I moved to the sound of gunfire. To earn the right to speak to you this way, and to my great-grandchildren someday, I live a very intentional way, particularly because I hear the clock of my time remaining on Earth ticking away. Aging ain't for sissies, and you won't see me aging gracefully. Watch me age intentionally, usefully, impactfully, and powerfully. I will earn it. Men, there is a roadmap to godly men. And here's what I know from my story and the stories of the thousands of men I've coached and mentored. You can do it too. I hear gunfire. Will you join me and run to it? I'm going to close with a prayer for you, if you would, and then I'll turn it over to PJ. This is a blessing from Numbers 6, 24, 26. Let's pray. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. May his presence go before you, behind you, and beside you. He is with you, and he is for you in all hours, all things, in all seasons. Lord, we thank you for your faithful promise fulfilled in the gift of your Son, the Christ child, the ultimate blessing that reverberates to all the families of earth. Amen. Thank you, men, for listening today, and I turn it over to our